What's up, everybody? It's your boy SB, and you are now tuned in to episode 2 of season 1 of the Real Black Gold Podcast. I'm your host, SB, and I just want to give a quick shout out to my boy MX Focus behind the scenes. And we have a great guest today. This is a friend.
First guest.
I don't use the
First
word
guest.
brother lightly because, you know, in hip hop, everyone uses the word brother.
Yeah.
It's my brother. It's my brother. And I'm like, nigga, you don't even know that cat, man. He's like, you, my brother. But anyway, this is definitely someone I can call a brother, a friend.
Yes, sir.
We've known each other for, over 10 years now. And I'm very, very happy to introduce him to the TRBG pod audience. It's my boy, RUKUS. So, yeah, everyone give it up for Ruck. So I guess we'll just get started. And today's topic, we're going to focus on the topic called Be the Bag.
Be the bag.
And Be the Bag, interestingly enough, was a phrase that this genius over here coined. We were actually out at a day party, you know, participating in Sunday Funday extracurricular activities at Bell Station.
Yes, sir.
And so we were... Us three of us, that's me, himself, and our friend Rizzo, we're all having a conversation that had to do with self-worth and basically how to, you know, how you think of yourself, how you see yourself in general, in light of the world, and how that attracts certain or different kinds of people to you. And Ruck just blurted this thing out. Be the bag. You got to be the bag. So that's what the topic of today's podcast is. Be the bag has to do with self-worth, so we'll be delving into different aspects of self-worth. So I got my book here, make it official. So
got the run sheet.
I know, right?
Official run sheet. Okay.
So we're gonna start off with, you know, who's RUKUS. Introduce yourself to everyone.
Okay. So I'm RUKUS. I would say that I like to define myself as a storyteller. A lot of people call me an artist. They would say, okay, well, he's a rapper, but yes, I do rap, I do write poetry, I write nonfiction, I write fiction. But most of all, behind all of that, behind anything that I do, I think it's always about the story. It's always about the narrative. So that's what interests me is telling stories. I'm interested in people's stories. And so I'm always trying to convey through, whether it's through song or through writing, you know, a story from a perspective that people haven't really thought of, or from a perspective that I feel like a lot of people can relate to but have not heard articulated in that particular way. So that's how I kind of define myself, and so I've kind of been doing my thing for a few years now, and still doing my thing. So that's how we cross paths.
Dope. Yeah, it's true. So full disclosure, we met. This was before Facebook groups. In fact, this was even before Facebook was developed. There was a thing called message boards, guys. You know, message boards.
Don't date them. Don't age.
Don't hate on the message boards, right? And so this particular message board started off being called Igbo Writers, and then later turned into Niger Writers. So shout out to all the Niger Writers who are out there. And you know, we would. There are different people who showcase their different talents, and you know, I was into hip hop, I was into music, so we would post verses, would post poetry, and Ruck always seemed to have like some of the dopest, you know, haikus. I remember your haikus were fire, and so it was like, you know, and we all would exchange ideas and things like that until I moved to Houston in 2006, and then, you know, we officially met at this Nigerian event where unfortunately your name was brutally mispronounced. Brutally.
RUKUS,
but
not RUKUS.
RUKUS. We met, we exchanged numbers, and we just became friends. We just kind of hit it off. We just pretty much vibe. So, right. So you talked about what you're passionate about, how you got the name. So I guess the next question for me is, how do you feel now about relationships, especially within the Black community? Like, how do you feel about the state of our relationships? Be it, of course, everyone wants to focus on the romantic aspect, which will probably dominate the conversation, but romantic, familial, everything. Like, what are you seeing right now? Because there's been a lot of recent events that have really, unfortunately, really triggered us, you know, in major ways. Rest in peace to Botham Jean. Rest in peace to Joshua Brown. You know, so and so many others who've died, you know, amongst the various parts of our community. So what is the state of relationships right now in terms of what you're seeing, social media, just in general conversation?
I mean, I think a lot of us are. I think a lot of Black people are lost right now. I think we're trying to. I see that we're moving into these echo chambers, and I think that's a result of social media. So you see a lot of. I mean, even social media is steering us that way. Facebook is steering people into groups more, and it's moving less away from that big community and moving more into, find your private group of people who share the same thoughts and ideas as you, and moving with those. And so I think that society in general, and this is not just, about Black people, but in general, I think that we are all getting kind of siloed off, and we're all going into our own individual groups that have people who think like us, who act like us, who have the same ideas as us, and that's kind of it's not a horrible thing sometimes, but I think it's kind of worrisome in that I don't think we remember how to interact with people who don't share the same views, who don't share the same beliefs. I don't think we are in an era that knows how to compromise and not jump to the extremes, to not think that because that person's different, that different is bad. So that's like kind of my high level. Now, if you start moving down into individual relationships and moving into romantic relationships, I think that you start to hit on some of those same themes and you can start to see why there's problems with relationships. People will meet each other, and if this guy doesn't agree with X, Y, and Z, then he's done. Like, I'm not going to talk to him anymore. And same way with dudes. Dudes are like, well, if she doesn't do this, this, and this, done. And now there's so many options available. There's all these different dating apps. There's all these different ways of interacting and meeting people. So I think now it's very difficult to convince somebody that, stick this out and try and understand this person that's sitting next to you. Try and understand this person that's across the table from you on this date. Because they're like, why should I? Why should I do that? Why can't I find somebody who thinks just like me? I can go on this app and select the exact height, the exact weight, the exact shape, the exact political views, the exact religious beliefs. And I should be able to select that, cue that person up for a date. Why would I deal with this person here who has a different background or a different way of doing things than me? And so I think between social media, between the access that we have, and I'm not blaming social media, I just think that the tool allows for the manifestation is that we're all siloed off and just dealing with like minds.
So that brings me to an interesting point, because for me, I think I'm trying to figure out, so, with relationships specifically, or even casual friendships and whatnot, so from a spiritual standpoint, a biblical Christian standpoint, right, we are encouraged to walk with people of like mind. We're encouraged, can two walk together except they be agreed and stuff like that. So now the question for me, I guess, becomes, and probably for some out there, is, there is, from what you're saying, there is an advantage in talking to people who believe differently from you, think differently from you, see life differently from you. So when it comes to relationships, how do we kind of straddle that line in terms of sticking things out, working things out, or meeting someone, who, they think differently, believe differently, and making a relationship or building a life together? Like, how do we straddle that fence? Because I feel like from a spiritual standpoint, we're encouraged, it's rammed into us in, like, you should walk with people who are like you. You should move with people who are like you. Even people refer to the scripture, don't be unequally yoked with a quote unquote unbeliever and things like that. Like, so how, I guess, what would you recommend, or how do you straddle that fence in your life?
Well, no, I get that, right? Like, so I do get that there are some advantages to commonalities, but the question is, like, what is it? What are the things that you really need to share to have commonality with somebody. So, me, I like ogbono soup.
True.
I like egusi soup.
Yeah.
I like pepper soup.
Yeah.
It's all soup. It's all Nigerian soup.
Right.
Like that's the commonality.
Right,
so
right,
if if you want to take it to scripture and to believing and Christianity, well, I would say that the only prerequisite that that matters the most is like, are you a believer? Do you believe in God? Do you believe that that Jesus is the Savior and the way and the truth? Like, if you believe those things, then okay, that's that foundational
We have a foundation
commonality.
Yeah.
Now we can work from there.
Right.
And then now it becomes, you may have some other core beliefs.
Right.
But if we don't necessarily agree on who our favorite sports team is, if we don't necessarily agree on, I don't know, economics.
Yeah.
If we don't necessarily agree on certain things, like, it's not the end of the world. Like,
those
used to be things that people move past,
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's like people want to be 100% aligned, and if we're not aligned, then I don't want to hear it. You're canceled, and it's just that cancel culture, this polarizing culture, and so go back to answer your question. I think that just having core values in common is important,
right?
But beyond that, like, the spice of life is variety, is being different, and getting different perspectives is what helps people grow. And I think a lot of us are missing that nowadays. So.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Because, like you said, personally I believe, right, when it comes to even God's spirituality, I believe God is a God of diversity. I mean, if you just go outside and just look at the flora and fauna, like the vegetation, there are different colors of flowers, there are different heights, there are different types of trees, and all of these things seem to be in harmony. You don't ever hear like an oak tree complain to a shrub, yo, you're blocking my sunlight, or whatever. Like, but in humanity, like you said, echo chambers, it just feels like, okay, well, you're Pentecostal, I'm Catholic. Oh, Catholics are bad, they're terrible. Why? Oh, well, they have all these religious rights and so on, something like that as an example. Or even better, I'm Christian, well, you're Muslim, you're Jewish, you don't believe the same thing I believe. But we all believe in a God, though. Like, we believe in a source and sustainer of the universe, that type of thing. So, I feel you. So, I guess to segue into the next question would be, what does it mean to you to be the bag? Like, when you say be the bag, which is a dope hashtag, by the way.
Hashtag be the bag.
What does be the bag mean to you?
I mean, I think be the bag is a very simple concept. It just means you are the prize.
Right.
You are worthy. You are worth something.
Right.
And I think a lot of times, especially for men, you get taught that women are the prize and you are the hunter,
right?
And that you are supposed to chase after them and seek them and corner them and just and that's cool if that's what you believe. Like, I'm there's people who believe very traditional things, and there's people who have more progressive and modern views or whatever, but no matter what it is that you choose to believe, being the bag just simply represents that if you are somebody who is traditional and you do believe you need to seek out a woman, well, you too are worth something, and you too are a prize. And she, as much as you are seeking her, she also needs to seek you as well. She needs to meet you halfway, because you are worthy of being met. Right. If you're somebody more progressive, it might be a more extreme stance. It might be like, you know what? I'm good in everything that I do. I love myself, and I don't feel like I have to chase anything. I feel like whatever is meant will come to me. I feel like I'm worthy of being noticed too. I feel like I'm worthy of receiving signs from a woman that, you know what, I am attracted to him, or I am interested in him. Right. And so I think be the kind of that slogan, be the bag, is something that could be attached to somebody who is really traditional, or somebody who's into more modern belief.
Gotcha. How do you, like, if someone were to ask you, okay, Ruck, how would you define? Because I feel like be the bag speaks to self-worth. I think they're the same thing in my understanding, and how, like, in our conversation, private conversations. So how would you quantify self-worth for a black man, like, especially in 2019, a young black man, a kid is 15 trying to figure it out, like, or even a 35-year-old still, like, finally getting it, like, how important is self-worth to us? How would you define self-worth?
I think self-worth is everything. I think that, you know, if love is like a well, you don't, the amount of love that you have to give is proportional to what's in that well. You can only take from what is in that well. So if you don't, how can you properly love anybody else if you yourself are not full of love? Like, how are you going to be able to give that love in a healthy fashion? So I mean that's number one. I think for black men, there's a struggle that goes on, because so much of what we consume puts us down. So much of what we consume labels us as hypersexual, labels us as criminals, labels us as uneducated, you know, boxes us as athletes or musicians or entertainers. That's it. And so I think for, you know, and then even within the scope of that, within entertainment and music, like, you'll see, like, man, if you don't have a stack, if you don't have a bad chick, if you don't have a bag of money, if you're not popping bottles, if you don't drive a Benz or a Ferrari or a Lambo, like, oh my God, what are you doing with your life? And I think all of those images that circulate through different media can make it very easy for a black man to feel like, yo, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm not hitting. I'm not.
I ain't there yet.
I'm not there. And then if you're not there, you feel like you feel like it lessens your worth. Nobody's checking for you. I'm not doing. And, you know, in this, they say comparison is the thief of joy. And so in today's era, man, like, you log on to Instagram and you just be like, man, what am I doing with my life? How is this person living this house? How has this person got this bad model chick? Wait, how they buy that Ace of Spades? And you just be looking, you just scroll through, and by the time you spent, 30 minutes scrolling through Instagram, you leave and you're like, you look around your apartment and you're like, man, what am I doing?
Well,
And so I think it's very important for us as black men to, number one, be self-aware, right?
That's a key. That's a big word. That's a big word.
It's like self-aware. Like, what? Like, remove the noise for a second. It's like, what is it that actually makes me happy? What is it that I like to do? What is it that makes me feel good about myself? So, for example, maybe what you like to do is, or what makes you feel good about yourself is helping people. Like, what makes you feel good about yourself outside of yourself? Like,
that's a good one. What makes you feel good about yourself outside of yourself?
Because typically what I found is that the things that we seek for ourselves, the happiness and the fulfillment tends to be quick, snap of a finger. So you'll hear artists, you'll hear businessmen talk about how, they, somebody won an Oscar or somebody won a Grammy or something. And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I won. And then the next day,
that's it.
That feeling is gone.
It's gone.
You won that Grammy. And you realize that's not really what made me happy. That's something I was seeking because I was seeking validation for myself, but it's not really what makes me happy. And so the things that tend to last a little bit longer is, you meet somebody that's struggling. You talk to them. and you realize they have a story. They tell you the story, and in some way, whether it's by giving them $5 to get a meal, or whether it's helping at a shelter, or whether it's doing Habitat for Humanity and helping somebody construct a house, like, you're happy in that moment, and when you're doing it, and then you're happy for days after, and then it becomes a memory of like, man, you know, I remember
you felt so fulfilled.
You felt fulfilled. You felt fulfilled in that moment because you did something for somebody outside of yourself. And so, to kind of get back to like that self-worth thing, it's like figuring out what are those things that bring fulfillment to you and happiness to you that's a little bit more lasting, you know. And once you figure those things out, how do you integrate those things into
your life
in a way that's sustainable, so that you are consistently feeling fulfilled? And that is what builds that. So, like, you know what, I am doing something for people outside of myself, and I am fulfilling myself in that process, and I feel good doing that. And I don't think we don't learn that.
Yeah, we're not talking. It's interesting that you mentioned that. And full disclosure for the audience, you know, I used to be one of those people, and every now and then I pull myself back, where, you know, you hear about this whiz kid and maybe IT, or a golden child somewhere, you know, a young millionaire that just broke through and sold stocks or something, and I would always be like, dang, what am I doing with my life? Like, yo, what am I not doing right? Even as a rapper, you're like, yo, man, these guys don't rap better than me, like that type of thing. And I used to struggle with those things, because I feel like as us who are Nigerian or immigrants, black immigrants, black African immigrants, it's there's you're born into the world with the notion that you must achieve all these things at a certain age. And if you don't achieve these things at a certain age, well, you don't see your mates are doing this. What are you doing? You know, and it like you said, comparison is the thief of joy. So I guess from what you've said and what I gather, self-worth is basically placing value on yourself. And one of the ways that you can feel more of that value, because I believe everyone comes like with an innate, intrinsic value. Everyone is born with intrinsic value. And so you're saying that the way you connect to that value is by giving of yourself to people, doing things that, you know, make you happy, that you're passionate about, pursuing those passions to their end.
And I'll take it deeper than that, because I think what I covered is more like how do you maintain that self-worth, right? But I think intrinsically, no matter what you believe, even if you're not somebody who believes in Christianity, everybody has to construct or subconsciously constructs their own heaven and their own hell.
True.
So your heaven might be, you live in a $500,000 home, you have a beautiful wife, you have 2 kids, you're a pillar in the community, you do a lot of things to help people. Like, that's the ideal life. That's who you want to be. You want to be that guy. Your hell might be everything goes wrong. You've lost your job. You take on some of your worst habits. You womanize. You know, you're not stable. You don't have that stability in your life. So you have this heaven and this hell, and you're somewhere in between there right now. And so everything becomes geared. What the things that make you feel worthy are the actions that lead you closer to that heaven. The things that make you feel less self-worth are when you start tilting in a direction that takes you closer to that hell. And so I think that's the daily battle that we all go through. And so the question is, are people consciously thinking, like very consciously considering, like, what is that heaven? What is the best version of myself? And am I taking the steps to get there? Because that's truly, when you're not doing anything to get to that best version of yourself, to that consciously or subconsciously, if you're not doing anything, that's when you start to feel less
That's
worthy.
true. Absolutely. And I don't mean to interject, but I feel like, again, to bring this to black men specifically, because I feel like there are not many of us speaking to these issues. Because you've mentioned a lot of things with respect to wealth, and I think for us as black men, we tend to associate a lot of our intrinsic value, our self-value, or self-worth to wealth. How much money we have in the bank account, what kind of car we're driving in, and so on and so forth. And then what you're saying now is having self-awareness, which is a knowledge of self, an awareness of who am I outside of these things? Who am I outside of racism, colonialism, like for us who are immigrants, racism for our brothers who are here? Who am I outside of all these isms, even patriarchy as well? Who am I outside of all these things?
Well, think about the example that I gave you. So I said you wanted to, like, maybe your ideal life was the Benz, a $500,000 home, a beautiful wife, 2 kids, and you're doing all this stuff in the community, you're helping people, all of that, right? Okay, let's say that was your heaven.
Right.
Now, take that snapshot of your heaven and then ask yourself, why do I want the Benz? Does the Benz make me feel fulfilled or happy?
Yeah.
Like, do I really feel happy because I love that car?
Right.
I love the drive.
Yeah.
I love the smell. Like, I love cars like that. The German engineering. Or do I want a Benz because it serves as a symbol and other people will think that guy's got it because he's got a Benz. He's
I can
doing
pull
good.
up. Yeah, I can pull up. Yeah.
So is it about everybody else?
Right.
Is a $500,000 home about, you need the space and that's what you want. That's what enough space for you to do your art, to have the kid. Or is it more about, I want people to come in and think my crib is fly?
Yeah.
So when you start asking yourself those questions and you start separating the things that you want or that you think will make you happy, but they're really predicated on the thoughts of others, versus the things that will make you happy because they actually make you happy. Right. Then now you start to see, like, okay, well, if I do these things, that's what's going to make me feel worthy. If I do these other things, then I might feel happy temporarily, but I'm furthering the notion that my happiness is predicated on the opinions of others.
All right, guys, back from our little break. So back to the question that we had before the short break. I was basically asking you, we set up the prototypical club scenario where we're standing off to the side, see this dude, he rolls up, 1, 2, 3 bad chicks on his arm. We walk into a section, bottles of pop, sparklers are coming out. Hey, honey, follow you, banana follow you, the typical stuff. And you're like, man, I know for me, it's like, man, I like that. Like, that could be me, So I guess my question to you is, as men, why is that those types of images make such an impact on us? Even as men who, maybe doing well for themselves or have decent jobs and decent situations. Like, what?
I'm going to take you somewhere.
Right.
So I want you to close your eyes. Imagine, imagine you grew up in a very rural area, very out in the country, town that's got like 100 people. Yeah. Now imagine that you're in that town and from the time you were a little kid, all you saw were happy, supportive, compassionate, compromising, married couples with successful businesses together, with children together that were raised right and were growing up to be kind as well. Imagine that's what you saw consistently through your formative years. Yes, yeah. And now imagine in that same town that where married couples were always holding hands and walking around and having dates and showing love to each other, and you're just growing up like, man, this is life. This is how it's supposed to be. Now imagine you went to some venue in that town and there's one random guy, and he's got 2 or 3 girls with him. Imagine what do you think your reaction would be?
Probably like, huh?
You'd be like,
what's wrong with this guy?
What? Like, he's gallivanting with these random women. Like, it's all about what you're fed, what you consume,
Right.
and that's what determines what we think of as healthy and what we think of as unhealthy.
Right.
You know, someone who grows up eating nothing but plants and veggies, when they go to a place where there's beef and meat everywhere, they're like, what is going on here?
Yeah,
and vice versa. Like we live in a society. This is America's a meat eating country, and we look at vegetarians like, oh my gosh, like what are you doing? You know, that stigma is changing, but it's taking so much.
It's taking so long. Yeah, you're right.
So in the same way, bringing it back to the guy with the 3 chicks walking into the section, about to pop bottles, all of that. We see that's what Trey Songz does. That's what 50 Cent does.
Right.
That's what the Baby does. That's
Right.
that's what Future does.
Yeah.
This is what we visually have been seeing this for as long as I've watched hip hop.
That's true. And as rappers, that's all we've seen.
This is what I've seen.
Yeah.
And then now we're not even getting into the lyrics that you're consuming that are misogynistic and that are talking about menage a trois, that are talking about, you know, how women are handled and treated and objects and all this kind of stuff. If you consume that stuff long enough, then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? That sounds dope. Look, how long strip clubs have been around since
forever,
for centuries, for
centuries.
millenniums,
Probably. Yep.
But isn't it funny how the strip club culture just kind of shot up around the time Drake started?
Yes,
big up in it. Around the time Nelly with Tip Drill,
suddenly
culture,
it became more mainstream.
Remember? It turned into a strip club. Used to be a thing that like
it was taboo.
It's taboo, and then maybe you go on a bachelor party.
Thank you.
That's about it.
Yep.
Now, like the strip club is where it's a club. It's
going,
like an after hours
like
club.
People, where y'all going? Oh, we're going to the strip club. Why? To get some wings. Really?
Like like it's become like, you know, casual, and so all of these things get fed in through different media points. We consume it.
Yep.
And then if you're not consuming something else that balances that out, it becomes your truth.
Yeah, it becomes your truth. It becomes normalized.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so once it becomes normalized, then that's what. Hey, I want that because that's what's normal. That's what's cool.
Right.
Now, for some of us, if you grew up in a household where you have 2 loving parents, you were fortunate enough to have 2 loving parents, and you saw a marriage that had, you know, maybe it has its ups and downs, but for the most part was good and healthy and created businesses or created wealth and there was love, there were more kids. If you saw that and that's what you were consuming, then for you, it probably balances out some of what you see on TV. And so you might at sometimes be like, oh, I know he's about to have fun tonight. I could get with that. But then at the same time, you could also see a relationship and be like,
but I want that.
I want that though.
Right.
Because my parents been together 40 years and I want that.
Right.
I want somebody that got my back like that.
Right.
And you could also know that you've seen that other situation. You might see that it's a little bit more flimsy.
Yeah.
You know. So I think that a lot of what influences what Black men aspire to be is what it is that we're consuming.
Gotcha.
And that's why the representation
matters.
in TV shows as doctors, lawyers, engineers, it matters. That's why the representation in boardrooms, in different companies, it all matters, because if all that somebody is seeing on TV or all they're running into in the streets is drug dealers, basketball players, entertainers, or, you know, on a TV show, it's Black men cheating a woman. If those are the only stories and those are the only images that people are consuming,
then all of a sudden
what else would they aspire to be?
Right.
They don't even have an option.
Exactly. So in other words, we are what we eat. And it's just like the scripture says, you know, evil communication corrupts good manners. So to your point about someone who was raised a certain way, exposed to certain things, this is all they're going to see. And conversely, people who unfortunately haven't, you know, had those healthy experiences, never seen healthy relationships. So whatever, because we've all experienced dysfunction on some level. So whatever dysfunction that's unique to your background, unique to your history, that's sort of what you're going to regurgitate or at least be drawn to or see as normal.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've said all these things, right, and these are awesome things, and you mentioned self-awareness. So how do we, quote unquote, unplug from the matrix, especially as black men, like the average black dude? Like you know, you jump on Twitter, you know, you see certain things. You jump on Facebook, you see certain things. You turn on your TV, you see certain things. How do we unplug, and how do we heal? And this is what I'm gonna bring the sisters in too. How do we as a people unplug from this matrix? Because again, like, black people are not in power in a sense, right? We're trying to get the power, but we're not in power at all. And we're it's almost like it's an uphill battle for us. We're facing, you know, racism, white supremacy, colonialism, all these isms that have already been ahead of us before. We're fighting for representation. We're fighting, you know, for just to be in all these spaces. You know, now recently, I'm sure you heard about Tyler Perry building this massive studio, which is a beautiful and awesome thing. Like, but look at how long it took for us to get a Tyler Perry to build that studio. And thank God it's happened in your and my lifetime. But imagine the other people like the Sidney Poitiers of the world who they could have taken advantage. They could have, you know, that, I wonder what that could have done for them, you know, that type of thing.
So I'll start from the end of what you said and work my way back. Do you think Tyler Perry is the first person with the access to those kinds of resources to create that studio?
Maybe not.
You know,
I mean, it's possible that, because we don't know. I mean, I don't know all the.
I mean, he's
millionaires.
He's definitely one of the top, you know, one of the top directors, producers, or whatever in the industry. So I know he's made a lot of money. So that's not even. There's black billionaires.
Yeah, I guess what I will say.
There's black millionaires and there's black billionaires. True. So there's a lot of choices being made. There's a lot of choices now you're making.
No, you facts, because I was going to say that yes, he may not be the first person with those resources, but he's the first that we've seen that made the choice and said, I'm going to put my money literally where my mouth is, and I'm going to create, according to him, the table for everybody.
And so that's why I said I want to backtrack into the answer to your question. So because I feel like there's two parts to it. There are those who will be fortunate enough to be creators of change, and then there are those who will be consumers, right? And so first of all, for the creators, there's a choice of, am I going to, now that you've infiltrated, by creator I'm saying, if you are someone who has infiltrated the system, you've been fortunate enough to attend a university and get a good corporate job, and now you're a VP or SVP or CEO or some managing director or whatever. Congratulations, that's good for you. What are you going to give to the community? I'm not saying you have to.
True.
But if the things that we've talked about today are things that you feel are problematic and they worry you, then what are you going to do about it? And so now it becomes a priority. It should become a priority if you want to do something about it, to, as you said about Tyler Perry, put your money where your mouth is. And it doesn't mean go build a studio. It doesn't mean that you need to start your own business or anything. It just means make yourself accessible to be a role model to somebody that looks like you, to another black man, to another black woman, whether it's as a mentor or whether it's, sometimes it's not even a mentor, just being vocal about what it is that you do and how you got there, what shaped your path, how did you even get on this path. Sometimes it's something that simple that makes somebody say, oh, if I just do this, and I can do that too.
Yeah.
Like, what do I got to? Oh, I just got to make grades. Okay. Or, oh, I just got to go here. I just got to do this. I just got to talk to this person.
Yeah.
I just got to move. Like, I can do that too.
Right.
And a lot of times in our community, it's as simple as that. It's not that we don't have the minds, we don't have the creativity, we don't have the work ethic. We just don't know. We just we don't know, or sometimes we don't know, or we don't have an access point. And so back again to these creators and to these people, creators of change, people in these spaces. If you're a representative in that space, you can be a gatekeeper.
True.
You can advocate for people.
For other people. Yeah.
You can say, you know what? You interested in this? Hey, we have an internship position. Let me talk to somebody.
Right.
You know, you want to come by my office? Let me show you around. You can meet some people. Yeah. You know, our friend who is into marketing, like I told my cousin, she's into marketing too. She
True.
just graduated.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I was like, yo, talk to my homeboy.
Yeah.
He might not be able to get you a job, but he can tell you how you can get a job. Yep. He can tell you what you need to know to interview for that, to stay in the job, what you should know about the industry. You know, so that's what I would say from high level creators and people who are in those spaces. Now to the individuals who aren't there yet, and you're the one who is consuming. You're the one who, like your original question was, how do you kind of
unplug from the matrix? And I want to also, because you know, I don't want it to seem like we're just focused on the middle class black folks, but for the regular brothers and sisters that don't have the opportunities that we've been blessed with, you know, they're still struggling, you know, they're working the you know, the trade tech jobs or whatever, or they're, you know, working the, you know, the jobs that are not paying them that much, and they're just trying to survive. Like, how do they unplug from the matrix? Like, what is it? Is it that we need to lean in and help them, or is it something that they can achieve on their own? Like,
I mean, the beautiful thing about it's 2019 and we're about to be in 2020, and the beautiful thing about today's day and age is that there is no piece of information that you can't access on the internet. Right. There is no content that isn't available to you to learn something or to access something that you want to know about or to be informed about. So, you know, I tell people this all the time with music, and you know, and you should know this one. When I first started out rapping, people would be like, "Man, real rap is dead, man. There's no real rap anymore." And I'm like, I know so many dope rappers, you know, and it's like, who are you listening to? Oh man, you know, I'm just listening to what's out there. I just, you know, I heard, you know, this gangster rapper and that gangster rapper and this mumble rapper and all that. And I'm like, you know, there's this person. What about Logic? What about this person that's underground? What about this other rapper? What about Immortal Technique? What about Talib? What about Common? You know, all these, all of these guys, and they'd be like, yo, I never heard of that person. And I'm like, but you can just like search. No, you know, I'm looking for something more conscious, like something deep. Literally look up conscious rap and like a bunch of people are gonna pop up. And so I use that example to say it's the same with anything that you want to consume. If you want to eat healthier, look up what are healthy foods I can eat, and it'll tell you. If you want to consume better content on Instagram, now everybody's on social media, right? So you go on Instagram, and if somebody posts something that I see these people that like post motivational quotes and positive inspirational stuff. Where did that come from? Follow them, you know. And one feature on Instagram that people don't really talk about is you can look up by hashtag. You can follow a hashtag. True. And if you follow a hashtag,
it will lead you to a
plethora of individuals and entities that put out positive content. So you have options. You have the menu is fully available to you. It's just taking the time and choosing to curate the content that is coming through to you. So I feel like if you consume more positive content, then that's one step. And then step number two, like if you are in a position where, you know, as you said, you're not middle class, or there have been obstacles.
Yeah, like for those of our brothers and sisters that, you know, live in, you know, the ghetto, you know, the hood and all of that, like, because you know, I know sometimes we get caught up in our own bubble, you know, as middle class black folks or upper middle class and, you know, whatever. And we completely forget that there's a huge swath of us that don't have access to opportunities, don't have, you know, certain access or don't know certain things.
And that's what I was going to say. To knowledge. It's about knowledge. Yeah. It's no longer as much about access. Gotcha. It's more so knowledge. Do you have the knowledge?
Right.
You know, and so I think that the internet is the great equalizer. And so if you don't have the knowledge about something, the first thing you have to ask is like, okay, well, you know, if I'm in that position, it's like, what do I want? Like going back to what we spoke on earlier. It's that self-awareness. What is my heaven? What do I want to be? What do I want to do? What makes me happy? Right. And then once you found that thing that makes you, those things that make you happy, or a job that makes you happy, what do I have to do to get there? Okay, well, you need, like, okay, let's say you're right now you're working at McDonald's. You know, you're not making that much money. You got a small apartment. Maybe you share it with some people. What do you want to do? Oh man, well, you know, I do like helping people. Okay, what about nursing? Okay. Oh well, I don't know how to do that. I've not. Okay, well, have you looked it up? 2 years of school. You know, get your associates. Yeah. You know, take a test. Is there anything else? Or maybe you don't know what you want to do. What are you good at? Got any skill? Oh, you nice with computer. Can you type? Like, are you interested in coding? There's classes. There's grants. That like you can there's so much stuff on the internet.
So it seems like it's more of a knowledge issue.
It's a knowledge thing. Before it used to be, you know, when I was growing up, it used to be knowledge and access, because the only way that you could even get to the knowledge,
you had to go to a library.
You had to either go to a library, or some of those stuff wasn't even in libraries.
True, right.
It was with an individual, you know. So now all of those barriers, or most of those barriers,
with the internet, it has sort of leveled the playing field.
It's leveled the playing field. The information is out there. So now the hustle is, are you willing to hustle and go out there? First of all, are you self-aware enough to figure out what it is that you want to do, or what you're good at, or find that starting point? Right. And then, are you willing to go out on the internet, look up that information, and then start hustling forward? And every time you run into an issue where you're like, I don't know what to do next, are you willing to reach out to people and ask questions? Right. Or are you willing to dig deeper in the internet to see if there's answers? So those are the things, and I'm not saying it's easy. Yeah. But it's not supposed to be easy. Nothing worth having is easy. It takes work and it takes passion. And if you want to have a better life, then you have to have a passion to improve yourself. It doesn't matter if you're starting from level 0 or if you're already at
basically, in other words, I'm sorry to cut you. In other words, you have to want it for yourself. Yeah. So I guess that sort of deals with the question, which is, so how do we heal? How do we improve our self-worth? How to improve our value? How do we control what we consume? It sounds like, okay, first of all, we have to deal with the first question. What do you want?
So the first thing is, do you have the self-awareness?
Exactly.
So self-awareness to honestly evaluate yourself and the things that make you happy, the things that you're doing for others that you think make you happy, and the things that make you miserable and that you don't want to be. Exactly. So once you've done that evaluation and assessment and reflected on those things, then now it's like, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? You know, and then when you say, what are you going to do about it? Then now that becomes, now that I've decided who I see like this best version of myself, this happiest and most fulfilled version of myself, what are the actions I have to take to get to that heaven that I've created for myself? And then what are those actions? Are those actions predicated on speaking to people? Are those actions predicated on looking up stuff on the internet and getting more information? And then now becomes like hustling, grinding, and figure out, how do I make this come to fruition? You know?
So it sounds like the adage that I guess back in the day they used to have, like, black man heal yourself. So it's like black people, we have to heal ourselves. We have we have to take control of our individual lives to the greatest extent that we can.
To the greatest extent that we can. And so to go back to that, you know, and I know this is something you're an advocate of, if you have that self-awareness and you know that I've gone as far as I can go, or there's healing I need to do that I don't know how to cope with,
right, and
I'm not finding the answers, maybe you need a therapist, maybe you need a counselor, maybe you need, whether that's a spiritual counselor or whether that's a licensed professional,
right,
whatever that is, the first step is always that question, that assessment of like, where am I, you know, and then moving forward, then you can start deciding, here, what are the things that I can do, what are the things within my control that I can do to improve, and then what are these other things that feel like they're a little less in my control, or I don't have the ability to cope with them or handle them on my own. And that's when you start trying to reach out in your network and ask questions like, yo, I need help.
Exactly. You know, because for me, full disclosure, I got to the point where, you know, in my life, in my journey, I was doing well for myself, career-wise and all of that, but I knew I'd hit some type of mental roadblock, if you will. And thankfully at the time, the relationship I was in, you guys are familiar with, that the turbulence that, you know, I experienced in that relationship kind of opened the door and provided that access for me to access a therapist and be like, yo, I need to start going to therapy. And that just kind of just opened the floodgates for all these possibilities, which actually has led me to why we're here today.
And that's how it works. And I mean, for it, I'm not saying, oh, everybody needs a therapist, like you should go out and get a therapist today. Like, if you need one, if you need help and you're not able to accomplish those things on your own, you're not able to cope, or you don't feel like you have the proper coping mechanisms and things aren't changing, then maybe that is a good option for you. You know, one of the things I tell people all the time is like, yo, these, like, today we have experiences and get into relationships that literally break us, that literally break our perception of ourselves. Right. And once you've been broken, you only have a couple options. And what I see people try to do is, like, if you have a glass here today, like, that you drink out of, right? And you drop the glass. The glass shatters. And people try to sweep up these pieces of the glass. And then they try to, like, glue the pieces of the glass back together and make it. Man. And you hear people say things like, oh, I'm trying to get back to my old self. And they'll try to make that glass as it originally was. And guess what? If you try to pour water in that glass that you've now glued back together, cracks, it's water spilling everywhere. It's no longer, that glass is no longer what it was for the function that it originally was, right? And so I tell people all the time, when you've been broken, that's the opportunity for you to reinvent yourself. Good point. You know, take those pieces of glass. What else can we do with this? You know, and you know, there's a piece I wrote a long time ago. It was a fascinating thing I saw on the internet where this guy, there was a hurricane that hit. His glass furniture in the backyard got shattered completely, and instead of throwing away the pieces of glass or trying to reconstruct the tables and all that kind of stuff, he took the glass, he put it into these mason jars, and then underneath the lid of the glass, he put like a little LED light, like green and blue and red. He had different ones, right? Wow. Places that. Oh, I remember the story. I remember because you posted the pictures. He created these beautiful night lights. And you know, it was this revelation. It was this revelation to me, because I was like, we break and we try to become that glass that we were again. But maybe what we need to be doing is we need to be taking that old glass, pouring it into something new, and repurposing. So he repurposed this broken glass and made it into something that illuminates an entire room, totally different from what it was before. Right. And so many of us are trying to be our old selves once we're broken, and find that new thing. Who are you meant to be now? What can you be now in this new state?
It's interesting because even in the scriptures, you know, Jesus made reference to, you can't pour old wine into new wineskins. And you know, I actually researched that. That's a real scientific thing. Like, if you pour old wine into the new wineskin, it will burst. And so, like you said, to your point, we have to reinvent. We can be scared to be a newer version, better version of ourselves.
Exactly.
And it's something that my therapist always says is, in terms of healing, right? That your fear of your desire to be better has to outweigh the fear of staying I guess the fear of changing.
Yeah.
So your desire for healing has to outweigh the fear of changing.
I get it. Yeah.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that. So I guess the segue into, I guess, the final thing before we go into the next phase of the conversation where we can just talk about whatever. All right, and we're back from our break. So the question I was posing before we went on break was, how do we take on the mantra of being the bag within corporate spaces? How do we hold on to our self-worth, our self-value within these corporate spaces where we feel like we always have to minimize ourselves, diminish what we're doing, the importance of what we're doing? We don't feel like, especially for us as immigrants, we don't feel like we can speak up and say, I did this, I'm the one that brought this to the company, and so on and so forth. We feel like we have to be like, yes sir, no sir, no, and stuff like that. How would
that I'm not gonna lie, that's difficult because there's a mantra of, I know definitely with Black women, there's a mantra. They've got a double whammy of you're a woman, so there's already a gender equality gap.
And then once they show emotion, it's angry Black women.
So they I think the number is like around 17% or 19% less pay, than the male counterparts. And then if you're passionate and stand up for yourself, then you're the angry Black woman. And then likewise with Black men, there's thoughts about how intelligent is this person. There's you're maybe supposed to be the entertaining person in the group. There's a lot of kind of weird
hidden
dynamics
messages,
and coded messages that kind of get passed along in that corporate environment. So I get it. I think people aren't going to necessarily, I don't know if anybody's going to like this answer, but I think you have some tough decisions to make when you're in corporate America about, again, who do you want to be?
Right.
Like, I've been on both sides of it. I've been on the side where I was like, okay, let me do whatever I can to just fit in here. And yeah, it came with its share of successes. But then I feel like more recently, I've been more of like, look, this is who I am. I'm not gonna fake like certain things are funny. I'm not gonna fake like everything is okay. No, I have to stand up for myself. But again, tying back to all the things that I've said before.
Right.
What is it that is gonna make you happy?
Right.
And what makes me fulfilled and happy is when I've said my piece, is when I've been an authentic version of myself. Does that mean that I'm going to talk in the office the same way that I talk on the street? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that, because there's a time and place for everything. Yeah. But what it does mean is that I will not tolerate a level of disrespect, in the workplace, and I will not tolerate not being valued. So I think,
which connects to
a lot of people are so scared of like, oh, what happens if I say something about, well, maybe you get fired, or maybe somebody now looks down upon you, or maybe they form an opinion about you. But if you try to do so in a constructive and thoughtful manner, at the end of the day, you will be okay with yourself, and whatever happens, and you'll know the next place you go, you're gonna maintain that same energy, and I actually think what some people would be surprised about in the corporate spaces is if you're actually authentic and yourself, and you bring some value, you truly do bring some value to the table. It's actually refreshing to some people. It's actually refreshing because there's so many people faking it, faking the funk, trying to fit in, brown nosing, kissing behind, trying to like do anything to be a corporate climber and move.
Right.
If you're just someone who you do your work, you know your path, and you know part of the thing here too is that I've learned over the years is, did you set the table? Now, what I mean by that is, when you came into the job, did you give them expectations? They give you, they give you all these, here's your roles and responsibilities, with the corporation. You're going to be working with Billy, and he's going to, they'll give you all of that. Right. But what I found and what I do now is, when I've done interviews and when they ask me, okay, well, what, do you have any questions? Yes. How long will it take? What is the growth plan for this position?
Right.
If I'm doing above average work for the next year, what are the expectations in terms of where my role can go? Exactly. Am I going to move into a senior position? Will I move from a manager to a VP? Will I move from a supervisor to a manager? What's the track for 3 years? What does that look like? Right. How is my performance measured? Right. Is it through an evaluation? Is it tied to a metric, or is it subjective? So if you set the table on, I need to be in a place where there's a growth plan. I need to be in a place where when I corner this person who's interviewing them, when I say, hey, what happens after doing this for a year and excelling? If I've asked all the questions that now set up the parameters for what I'm working towards, so that now when I've worked hard for a year, I've busted my butt and I've kept my nose down to the grindstone, I'm doing my thing. When it now comes time for evaluation, oh no, we had this conversation when I came in for the job. There's not much to discuss. We had the conversation. You told me that if I do well, if I score if I am above average at my job for a year, that I should get promoted to this position. Well, now you just gave me a review, and on my review, the average score is 3. I got a 3.5. What's up?
True.
Where's my raise? Where's my promotion? And now you put the onus back, because you have those parameters, that you put the onus back on your employer to either show themselves as someone who's not truthful, not entirely honest, or if they're about that life, to be like, okay, you know what? I did say that, so let me make it happen. Yeah. And I think what happens with a lot of Black brothers and sisters that I see out there, we're so happy to even just get in a place. Yeah. We don't want to ask questions. I don't want to
go. We don't want to shake the table.
We don't want to shake the table. Don't want to ask questions about the growth plan. Don't even want to negotiate salary. I can't tell you how many people that I've met that, once they said I had the job, and they told you, hey, so we're making an offer at, $55,000, and we're glad to, we're hoping you're accepting. We'll be glad to have you on board.
They were just happy to.
And they'll be like, you know what? Let me just take it. Because I've not heard back from other people. No. How much were you expecting to make? Right. What's the market value?
So you see, this ties in again to the intrinsic value that we place, on ourselves. And, it's one thing to talk about it in light of a relationship, black man, black woman thing. But now this is us versus them in a sense. Now, not in a opposition sense, but in a, okay, I'm here, but I'm worth something. I can not only negotiate salary, like I've talked to a bunch of people who, unfortunately didn't know that they could also negotiate vacation time. Like everything can be negotiated. But like you said, to your point, you have to know what do you deserve, which I think, like you said, and I know you've also given me advice in this area, that has helped me in my corporate journey as well, is knowing what I'm worth, knowing what I'm bringing to the table, knowing what I'm capable of. Doing, of course, you got to do the work.
You got to do the work. But that's the assumption, is that you're going to do the work. Right. And if you do the work, what is it now that you deserve? Hey, okay, I wanted to get paid, $60K, but they offered me 55. I told them I want 60. They're like, nope, we're not moving off of 55. What do I do? Okay. Well, number one, you have to answer the question honestly for yourself. Are you willing to take 55? Are you cool with 55? A lot of people might be like, well, yeah, I'm cool with 55. Well, but don't just take the 55. If I take the 55, will you guys throw in an additional
incentives,
week of vacation time? Will you guys allow me to work from home?
Expand my benefits,
Can I work from home twice a week?
Right.
Can I work from home on Fridays?
Right.
What are other points to leverage? Maybe you're in a bigger company. You're a Fortune 500 type company, and maybe it's, okay, I wanted a position that was going to pay me $85K and they offered me 70. We're far off from my number. What can I do? Do you guys have stock options? Do you guys have other programs where, how do I make that money back up?
Right.
So sometimes knowing your worth, it's not all just cash, but it's like the aggregate value of everything.
The totality of who you are and who you're bringing in.
What's the totality of what they could bring to the table?
Right.
If you're not going to get me at my salary, then give me another reason. I just don't want us
to accept, just take what's given.
To just take anything that's given.
Right.
And this ties back to everything that we've talked about before in terms of when you see yourself as the bag, when you see yourself like, I'm the prize, I'm the one, they should be seeking me. Then when somebody offers you less than what you're worth, I'm not taking it. Just like there's a lot of, it's fascinating to me. There's a lot of women that if you told them that you were taking them to Chipotle for a first date, you'd be like, oh, nah, I'm not going with you on that date. Nope. That's not how that's gonna work. Nope. Do I look like a Chipotle kind of chick? But then those are the same girls that when they apply for this job and they were expecting to make 65K and the job offers them 50K, they're like, you know what, I'll take it.
Yep.
And it's like, no,
these things are all connected.
They're all connected. Yeah. That sense of value, and then that fear of what if I can't find something else. Yeah. And so those are the things that I think, a lot of us have gone through, and in the process of going through, you learn. And as you build your self-esteem, you learn, I'm not taking that.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm not taking that. So my advice on that is just really understand the things that you feel like your value in terms of, from a corporate standpoint, what is your value? And that means doing research to understand your market value, going to whether it's salary.com or glassdoor.com, sites like that, and understanding what does your position pay in your region, or locality. Mm-hmm. So understanding that, understanding the different offerings of companies that you're applying with, or the company that you're with and you're trying to move up in, understanding all of that stuff, and then understanding okay, having a plan. If they turn me down on salary, what is something else that I'd want them to, if they're below my threshold on salary, what is something else that they could increase? Being intentional and having those things so that somehow you're getting to your value.
Absolutely.
So I think those are little tips that I think a lot of us could use in the workplace.
Yeah, that's dope. So and with all that being said, I mean, we could go on for hours, keep talking about what it means to be the bag. So I think we'll try to wrap it up here. At this point in time, I don't know if I guess whatever topic that we want to talk about.
What's been on your mind?
I think for me, there's a lot of things. I mean, there's Trump for one, and
I'm not giving that.
He's sending the country, careening off a cliff. But anyway, forget him. But again, for us, it's So the past 2 weeks, there's been this wild debate about forgiveness, and how should we respond, and in these situations. And of course, Buff and Jean's brother, Brant, I believe is his name. Of course, he's gotten it from both sides. He's gotten it from those of us who felt like, yo, this was not necessary. He's gotten from people who felt like, yo, this is unconditional love, and Jesus would have done the same thing. And now, a couple of days later, a fact witness, someone who saw the thing happen, has gotten shot, or rather killed.
Yeah.
Murdered in cold blood by, unfortunately, 2 or 3 other black brothers. So now the questions that ran through my mind is, okay, so now that we've shown forgiveness, we've shown unconditional love, which are all good things. Someone has died. Someone has died, literally died, because they stood up for truth. Right? And my mind goes to him, his family, all of that. Then the brothers that killed him, are they going to get forgiveness?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Well, allegedly. Yeah. True, allegedly. Let's go with the allegation. Allegedly, these brothers allegedly killed him. Are these guys going to get unconditional love? Say the Dallas PD does what they do or whatever, and it's proven in court that they did it. Are these guys going to get unconditional love? Are they going to get hugs? Are we going to give them forgiveness?
Let me tell you something. I'm not going to say that I'm a guru of scripture and the the arbiter of knowledge for Christianity, but one thing I know is that during the time that the Old Testament and the New Testament covered, they had laws.
Facts.
There were punishments.
Facts.
In the Old Testament,
it was bloody.
God was brutal. Like, God was like.
I know that. And the funny thing is, I know people don't like hearing
thunder,
that,
lightning,
but
fire,
it's true,
brimstone,
like, it's
flood.
true.
Like,
it's true.
like God said, you know what? Matter of fact, like just start over. Like, I just want to start over. Like,
facts.
so
facts though.
So one thing that I've been trying to impart since you said his name was Brant, since
Brant.
Botham's brother, since he hugged that woman, is like this thing with people. Oh, it's unconditional love and forgiveness. And forgiveness is fine, and the way, however, if he wants to forgive and he's ready to forgive, then props to that brother. Like, that's cool.
Right.
However, my problem with him was when he made the statement that if it was up to him, she would not even go to jail.
Yeah.
And I said something on social media. I wrote something out, and one of the key things that I wrote was that love is equal parts mercy
and justice.
I
agree with that stance.
And when you talk about kids, if your kid does something wrong and you just give them a hug and you're like, oh, I forgive you, but you don't discipline them in any way, they will spoil. What's the scripture say?
Spare the rod and spoil the child.
So,
train up a child in the way he should go.
Exactly.
No, we're not advocating beating your kids.
No, I'm not advocating beating your kids. The point is that
there's a consequence for every action.
Love contains discipline.
Yes.
Love contains
justice.
Discipline, and it contains justice. So bringing it back towards what just happened with Joshua Brown.
Yeah.
Is though whoever committed this crime, if it is these 2 or 3 black men, they're gonna go to jail.
Facts.
They're gonna go to jail
so quick,
and everybody will view that as okay, and they probably won't get hugged. And so my thing, and I think a lot of people think that, I don't know if I know people articulated it differently from me, but my thing is, if you want to hug this person, then make sure that you now come back and talk about how the discipline, the time, it needs to be enforced. It should be enforced.
Exactly.
Like make sure that that's part of the conversation.
Right.
And like we've talked about before, I think that as black people, we have to live for ourselves, but there's also this understanding that our individual actions, unlike any other race really, our individual actions really have an impact on the community and the collective.
It's true, and I empathize with Brant in the sense that I'm sure he wasn't trying to be the poster boy for the entire community, but like you said, to your point, on such a national stage, unfortunately, that act, and it's done to us more than any other group.
Of course, yeah.
Your act becomes the new standard for everybody else. And so my lengthy, super duper long post was showing to people what I felt was the biblical definition of forgiveness, which is plainly just letting go of an offense, right? But the Bible doesn't go into describing how that offense should be forgiven in public. It just doesn't describe it. So yeah, what Brant did is well within his right to do. However, and based on you and I, when we were talking about it after the fact, was that act though impacts an entire community. People get triggered when they saw that, but forget even the triggering. It's the notion that we all, unfortunately, get judged by that standard. And so now the expectation is, well, when you do this stuff, they will give you unconditional love.
Well, you know what's interesting is I actually did think about scripture during that, after that event. Yeah. And I thought about Jesus and the stories about Jesus. When I imagine it, he's such a G. Like, it's like, you know what? Like, you're healed or whatever. You're healed by your faith. But he wasn't like, oh, let's hunt. He was very like, let me just drop some knowledge on you. Before I heal you, let me check what your faith is like. Okay, yeah, you know what? You healed. But it was never like these like, oh my gosh. I always felt like, and there's certain scripture where he talked about people who are very the gesticulation.
They make these grand gestures.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But ultimately
there's no weight in that.
And he doesn't care about any of that.
Nope.
None of that gets
it's always the heart.
Further. It's always the heart.
Yeah.
So I think some of the issue there is like, yo, forgive, but don't make it seem like when this is such a high profile case, I think people are upset that this now, it felt like it undermines how people, the kind of justice that we think is deserved for these kinds of actions.
Absolutely.
It now becomes, oh, well, why can't you forgive like Brant did? The next time this happens, like, oh, he what a great young man. And that's what a lot of privileged people who have not been in the position that Black people are in. Oh, what an excellent young man. Wow, that's the way it should be.
Right.
We need a little bit more of that.
Right, and unfortunately, the Dallas PD ran with that, with the whole display with him and the judge. They ran with it and created a PR moment out of that.
Yeah.
But now, a couple days later, they're now trying to convince us that some group of guys traveled 4 hours, all right, to get 12 pounds of weed. And the deal went bad, and the brother got shot.
No, but this is the bigger the bigger thing that I guess I'm trying to impart on here is that as Black people, we need to start learning this lesson that our pain and our suffering is almost monetized, commoditized, and made into this thing that can be packaged and sold as healing, right? So whether it's Brant, whether it's, look at what happened with Kanye. When Kanye went to, and who else went to the White House? Was it Jim Brown?
Yeah, and Jim Brown. I think Steve Harvey may have.
And Steve Harvey went to. So these guys go to the White House, and I believe their intentions are, hey, I want something to happen.
Right. They're pure
in our community.
They may be pure.
But you go and we don't see the results. But your association,
unfortunately,
it cosigns.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
And that cosign now gets packaged and run everywhere in the media and sold. Yeah. And now people believe, oh, Trump is out there helping the Black people. And in the same way, oh, look at this. This is forgiveness. She's not a stone cold killer. She's just an innocent girl.
She was crying and she accepted Jesus.
What a mistake. Right. Well, no, you got convicted of murder. Like, and should be treated as such.
Right.
But guess what's going to happen? When it now comes time for her parole hearing, this is all going to be part. Joshua Brown is not he's not going to be able, his testimony is not going to be called into question, and his character probably. And then of course now this whole moment that happened, the optics of that will be brought up in that parole hearing to lessen her time. Hell, they may even appeal.
So you know what was interesting too? I was reading that her boyfriend also did some shady stuff. I guess destroyed evidence. I don't know how true that is.
Oh,
leading up to
her and her partner who were like they had some sexual involvement.
Right, and so there's all these things. And I'm not saying that people who commit crimes are not deserving of grace. That's not what I'm saying. But like you said, to your point, it's so interesting how all these things taken together are going to benefit her in the long run. Like you said,
they're going to benefit her, and then they set a precedence for our community,
right,
that when these kinds of crimes go to trial, that the punishment
does not fit.
And by the punishment not fitting, in essence, what is happening is you are literally lessening the worth of a black life. Oof. And that is what eats at my soul. Is that when this whole thing happened, I now said a black life is worth less in the legal system.
It really is.
You know. And so that's my issue with it. And you know,
it's crazy, man. Like I see a lot of people saying they only anticipate homegirl's gonna be in there for 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, it was a standard thing. We just expect it. And it's sad that we have to, like, we're conditioned to accept it, you know, and all of that. But, man, it's been a great conversation, bro. I appreciate it, man. Love, love, love. Shout out to MX. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll finally come to the end of the Real Black Gold Podcast, episode 2. Be the Bag with my friend, my brother Rukus. We appreciate you guys tuning in, man. Check us out. You know, we're everywhere. Overcast, Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We are literally everywhere. Just Google The Real Black Gold. Hashtag is TRBG Pod. This live taping of the episode will be on my YouTube page, youtube.com/soulbrothervideo. Rook, I mean, you want to share your
check
socials?
Me out all over social media. At RUKUSLIVE, that's Rukus Live. So at RUKUSLIVE. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on YouTube. You can find me all under that. So check me out.
And check out our wonderful videographer here, MX Focus on all his social media platforms. For me, my IG, SB The-emcee, SoundCloud, SB The-emcee, Facebook.
SB The-emcee.
Same thing. So yeah, man, thanks for everything, for tuning in. Peace and love. God bless y'all.